Archie, the mailman, was about to finish for the day as he walked up to the Wilson house on South Oak Lane. He dropped a handful of mail and promotional material in the mailbox and was about to turn around and leave when he heard the screams. He froze and panic came over him. There was a moment of silence. He hesitated. Maybe he didn't hear it right. But the screams returned. He was even more freaked out when he realized the screams were a grown man's screams. Mr. Wilson's. There was no time to waste. He had to do something. He opened the door and stepped into the house, ready for anything. In the living room, Mrs. Wilson was chasing Mr. Wilson around with an axe. Their 4 children, ages 6 to 13, were peeking out from the stairwell that was leading upstairs. "Mrs. Wilson," Archie screamed, "please calm down." Mrs. Wilson was surprised to hear Archie's voice. She turned around, but just for a second. "I'm not upset," she said calmly. "Stay out of this, Archie." Mr. Wilson was relieved to see him, though. "Archie, please help me. She wants to kill me." The desperation in his voice was heartbreaking. "Mrs. Wilson, please stop. Whatever happened, I'm sure we can talk it out," said Archie as he was inching closer to the couple. "Not another step, Archie. I mean it," said Mrs. Wilson calmly and coldly. "This has to happen now." Archie stopped in his tracks. Mr. Wilson was losing all hope. "Please, Archie, you have to help me. I can't talk to her. She won't listen. I don't even know why she's doing this. All I said was the tea tastes funny. Then she just grabbed the axe and attacked me out of nowhere. It's like she's not even herself." Now, Mrs. Wilson started showing signs of stress. "Enough talk. We don't have time for this." She lifted up the axe and struck. Mr. Wilson screamed, but Archie jumped between the weapon and the poor man. The axe got him on the arm. The pain was sharp, but he held himself back and didn't scream. "God damn it, Archie," said Mrs. Wilson. "I almost killed you." Mr. Wilson saw an opportunity and started towards the door, but he didn't get far. A knife in his back forced him to stop. He turned around and couldn't believe his eyes. His 13-year-old son was holding the knife. "Billy," he said, and he fell on his knees. But that wasn't enough for Billy. He pulled the knife out of his father's back and cut his throat. Blood splattered everywhere. Archie got paler than a ghost. He fell down on his knees, partially from his injury, but mainly from shock. Billy couldn't be any prouder. "I got him, Mama." His mother was relieved. "Good job, sweetie, but you've got to help me with cleaning up all that blood." Why wouldn't he just take the poison? The other kids came out into the living room to look at the corpse. "So cool," said 6-year-old Tiffany. "What is happening here?" Archie stammered. "Are you some kind of psychopath family like those in the horror movies?" Mrs. Wilson laughed. She seemed very happy now. Not at all. But it's not that easy to explain." Then they heard the humming. It came from upstairs. "Who's that?" Archie asked. Well, that's Mr. Wilson, said Mrs. Wilson. Stacy, run upstairs and make sure he doesn't come down until we clean up his old body. Impossible, said Archie. He scooted closer on the floor to see the corpse. To his horror, where Mr. Wilson's body was supposed to be was a creature that did not at all look like a human. Gray skin, empty black eyes, claws and fangs. It was so terrifying he felt like he was going to faint. We have to do this every 7 days, explained Billy. We have to kill him before he turns into that so he doesn't kill others. It must be horrible, whispered Archie. But Mrs. Wilson just smiled. It's not too bad. He's the nicest guy on the planet the day he's reborn, and he's always a little bit different. Basically, every 7 days, the kids get a brand new father, and I get a brand new husband. It's actually not a bad deal. But Archie didn't agree. He thought, in fact, this was still a pretty bad deal. But what did he know? He was just the mailman.